Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. In this session, we want to give advice to those who are studying fiqh, in particular those who are studying madhabi fiqh or madhab-based fiqh. One of the most important phases in the life of the student who is taking on a madhab is to ensure that when they begin, they focus on the text that they're studying. And don't take for granted that you understand the contents of the text. So one of the issues that comes up, if we look at the method that was followed by those who came before us in the study of the madhahib, is the issue of memorization. Now in the West, we find that many of us are analytical more than we are inclined toward memorizing. So memorizing becomes a task. But without having the ability to conceptualize a mas'ala or an issue that is brought up, like for instance when we talk about following an imam in salah, what does that entail? First, in order for us to be able to conceptualize the issue properly, we have to know what is an imam, what is the responsibilities of the imam in salah. Then we have to understand before that how to make salah. And before understanding how to make salah, we need to understand how to perform wudu. Right? So we have, frankly, three issues here. We have the issue of wudu, we have the issue of salah in itself, and then we have the issue of the imamate. So in order to properly conceptualize the issue of following the imam, we have to have these two things in place in order for what? To get to the third point. The two things that have to be in place are the knowledge of wudu and what invalidates wudu, because it's necessary to have wudu for salah. And then what? And then how it is that the salah is performed. And along with that will go the times, how understanding the times of the salah. Along with that is understanding who is responsible for the salah. So in fiqh, every piece of knowledge builds off of another piece of knowledge. So there's that which comes before as a foundation, as far as knowledge is concerned, and then that which is understood after the fact. After you gain this foundation, then you have the ability to understand something new. So staying with the matan, staying with the text is very important, and reading it over and over again. Right? Reading it over and over again. Don't assume that there's an understanding there. Don't assume that I understood. You have to make it a little complicated. Right? And how so? How you make it a little complicated is by asking yourself, did I really understand this? Is there something here that's unclear? Is there something that could be understood better? But that comes when? That comes after third reading, fourth reading. At first you familiarize yourself with the text. Make it easy. Then afterwards you ask yourself, did I really understand? Right? Do I really know what invalidates the wudu? Right? Do I really understand what are the wajibat of salah? And in the case of the Hanafi madhab, it becomes a little more complicated because the Hanafis have the category of fard and the category of wajibat. So what happens with that is that the obligations in the salah are expanded. You have some things that are primary obligations and then things which become secondary obligations. And I'm just using this terminology to kind of simplify. You have those things which are fard and then those things which are wajib. And so that expands the amount of things which have to be done in the salah, have to be in place. And so those things which are wajib, if they're missed, your salah is still valid in the Hanafi madhab. But you have to correct your salah, right? You would have to correct it. But if you miss something that's wajib, your salah is still valid. But that's not the case when you're studying other madhab. That's not the case when you're studying other madhab, because that tafriqa or that distinction is not there. The distinction between fard and wajib. Except in the case of Hajj, you find some of the madhab, they separate between fard and wajib. But that's not the issue here. But the point being is that you have to make sure that you understood. You have to make sure you understood. You can't assume that you understood, because if you assume that, then that deters maturity from taking place, right? So we should take the basic books and have a heavy appreciation for them. We should take the basic books and have a heavy appreciation for them. And two of the books that I recommend the students of knowledge to study, especially at the beginning of seeking knowledge, when it comes to the Maliki madhab and the Hanafi madhab, is what is called the Iyad's Qawaid, because of يعني حسن الترتيب و يعني سهولة العبارات. يعني Qadi Iyad has a way of presenting things in a refined manner, and the language that he uses is easy. It's not complicated, and it's not necessarily bound up with time, right? So it reads as a text that's written for today, and it was a text that was written yesterday. The other text in the Hanafi madhab is the essentials, or I call it the essentials, but it's called the essential Islamic knowledge by Qadi Thana Allah Panabati. And the nice thing about this is that Qadi Thana Allah Rahimullah was a student of Shah Wali Allah. He gives you different opinions sometimes in an easy way. He'll tell you that the Maliki madhab and the the Shafi'i madhab and the Hanbali madhab are of this position, and we're of this position. And also he mentions the opinion of our Abu Hanifa rahimahullah at times, the opinion of the two Imams, Muhammad and Yusuf rahmatullahi alayhim jami'a. And so that book has more detailed explanation than the Qawaid in Maliki fiqh. But there again, like I said, in order for you to properly understand, in particular the Hanafi madhab, you have to have some conceptualization of the usul at a basic level. You have to know that there's a distinction between fard and wajib, right? And then you have to know that those things which are wajibat in the salah, they don't invalidate the salah. That's not the case in the other madhab. And that's just a starting point, right? In the Shafi'i madhab, Matin Abi Shuja' is translated as the ultimate conspectus by Musa Ferb. That book is a masterful book, mashallah. It's a text which you can keep with you for a long time. It's not that difficult to understand early on. The language is nice, but in the English translation we only have the Matin. We don't have an explanation to it, but still it's a good book to start with. And then there's the Umdah in Hanbali fiqh. Alhamdulillah, we have a translation of that. Those four matun are good. For the non-madhabi, then you start off with something like al-wajiz. The non-madhabi, those people who decide to try to follow the path of the muhaddithin, then you follow what? The wajiz. And then you go with what? Then you go with Sifat al-Salah, Shaykh al-Albani rahimahullah, and Fiqh al-Sunnah. Those books are in English. Arabic is a different ballgame, but those books are in English, right? And then you continue with Fiqh of the Quran and the Sunnah by Subhi al-Hallaq, right? And that should give you, that approach, right? But the other books, the madahib, they have their own curriculum. We're not going to get into that right now. But for the one who's studying the madhab, it's important to understand what I said, that you focus on the text. You learn the terminology of the madhab. You try to learn some of the usul of the madhab. Preferably learn with dalil. And in the Shafi'i madhab, you can study Bulugh al-Maram. You can just read it. Right, because the fiqh you're getting from the Matin, and the Maliki madhab you read the Muwatta, and in the Hanafi madhab you read Fiqh al-Islami by Shaykh Akram Nadwi. Bulugh al-Maram also works for the Hanbali madhab, right? And so you become familiar with the adillah. As far as the adillah, meaning the plural of dalil, as far as what a lot of the ulama recommend the student early on is to have some familiarity with the hadith that deal with fiqh. And one of the best texts is Umdat al-Ahkam. Why? Because all the hadith are sahih. And I'm not sure how available the text is in English. I know that there's an English translation because I possess a copy. But how widespread it is here in the US is questionable, or in the UK. For those who follow Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah, then you have the Crystalline Gems of Jurisprudence. That's translated. It can be purchased from the UK. Most of his book has a hadith that are referred or checked by Sheikh Al-Albani. It's not necessarily Shawkani's approach, because what the translators have done is they have converted the book into a book which it contains a lot of the knowledge of Sheikh Al-Albani along with Shawkani. But Imam Shawkani rahimahullah, he had some differences of opinion, that are not there in what we see with Sheikh Al-Albani. But that's that you can take that approach as well, and that's a comprehensive text. That's a comprehensive text. The Umdah is a comprehensive text in Hanbali fiqh. The Conspectus is a comprehensive text, and Shawkani's book is a comprehensive text, and the Wajiz is a comprehensive text. In the Maliki Madhab, Qawaid is not a comprehensive text. It stops at Hajj. It stops at Hajj. And the Essential of Islamic Knowledge, also by Qadi Thana Allah Panipati, is not a comprehensive text. It stops at Hajj. Right. But those are very good works. Allahu Alam, may Allah guide us all to that which is beneficial. Remember that we make our intention to worship Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So the purpose of the study of fiqh is to correct our ibadah. And it's a starting point. So don't become confused or despondent. Focus.